Welcome to Forever Exiled. I am Justin, aka Tags.
I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
It's episode 207, and we are joined by the one and only Octavian. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, welcome back. I never actually
that's
looked.
True. Thanks for having me on the show. A third time?
Yeah, that's right. Third time. I feel like your first one, I think you were like right after Tarky. I think it was like one of our earliest ones. Tarky was our first person. I think you were the second person that we had on. So yeah, you're back for 207. I feel like it was a long time ago that we
207 is a lot of episodes.
It is a lot of episodes. It's true.
Let's find out though. Hang on. What was the episode you were first on?
It was 30 something, somewhere in the 30s or 40s. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with us and making some time in your schedule way over there in New Zealand.
Episode 28.
Was it 28? Wow. Dang, that was a long time ago. Just real quick, patrons, anybody that signs up, we'll shout you out. We're recording this earlier than it's going to come out. So thank you, patrons. We love your faces. It gets you access to After Dark podcast after the podcast. So if you're curious, check it out. All right. So are you still Octavian? Like, is it, I don't know. Do you use that name much anymore?
Yeah, actually. A decent chunk of people at the office call me Octavian. It's pretty interchangeable, honestly. I mean, still at this point, probably more people, if you're just talking absolute numbers, know me as Octavian than as Chris. So
even at work,
I just meant like in general, because however many people watched my stream probably is still more people than I've met in real life.
Right. That you work with. That makes sense.
And is it Chris with a K or a CH? You spell it
CH.
wrong or right? CH. Now, do you have any personal? Right? Well, depends.
We're going to say it's
have
the correct
any
way.
Personal feelings towards people that have Chris spelled with a K?
There's nothing wrong with that.
A little bit, right? Though one of our best friends is a Chris with a K. So,
yeah, he's kind of a douche.
Like
Oh,
okay,
wow.
so you still go with Octavian then. So we're fine if we
fine.
Go with Octavian. Sweet.
I was Octavian well before I started streaming as well.
Just like in games or whatever.
Yeah.
Your buddies come over like, hey, can Octavian come out to play?
I don't know about that.
Friends, I assume.
Not quite that long ago.
Yeah. Okay, so just real quick, I guess, how was your week? You've had we're going to talk about all your craziness that's happened in a little bit, but are you relaxing yet? Are you starting to get back into life?
I mean, I'm still adjusting in terms of time zones. In that I now have the sleep schedule of like an 80-year-old man. Like I'm asleep at like 8:30 p.m. and I get up at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily the worst thing.
How long have you been back now?
I got back. When did I get back? I got back Thursday, and it is now Wednesday, so a little less than a week ago.
And did you go straight back to work? I remember you saying you might take those 2 days off.
I took Thursday, Friday off. Yes, I had a 4-day weekend, which was nice.
Nice.
Ooh, living the dream. Look at you.
Yeah.
Cool. So you went from New Zealand time, which is basically the future. That's like what,
for most
17,
of the world, yes.
18. So any robots helping you out around the house on a regular basis? Do we have that to look forward to?
Not for me, no. But, maybe I just can't afford robots yet.
It's not just on basic or anything. So then you went to Germany for Gamescom. You were part of the Gamescom crew, and it was that same crew that went to PAX West. Is that right?
Yep.
Was it the exact same crew? There was no difference in people?
Yeah, it was the same folks. I mean, actually, well, at Gamescom, we had a temp company that was helping us out since Gamescom is so massive. So there was like 4 or 5 people who were, like they were hired by a company whose job it is to get people to help at these events. So they were more like setting things up and making sure that the booth looked nice and, managing the line and that sort of thing. Whereas at PAX, it was just us.
So that temp group was assigned just to you guys? Like they're assigned just to you guys while you're there?
We had a few people who were assigned just to us. I imagine the temp agency was working with other booths at the convention, sure. But yeah, there was like, 4 or 5 people that were assigned to our booth.
Wow. Yeah, I saw pictures from Rishi and it looked massive compared to PAX.
Yeah, Gamescom was huge. Like in basically every way. Cologne, which I'm pronouncing horribly, the city where it's held is like a good chunk of its economy is based around the fact that they have this massive convention center that can house literally hundreds of thousands of people. I think it was like 340K people showed up to Gamescom.
And it's like 8 or 13 buildings, I thought Rishi was saying. Like
it's at least double digits. I don't know. I don't remember precisely how many, but you know, at one point I visited Hall 11, so yeah, definitely double digits.
Good Lord, we were lost with 2.
Yeah, PAX felt chill by comparison.
Is that right? Well, that's good.
We were running around with our heads cut off trying to find you guys. We ended up in the same building 3 different times from 3 different avenues, and going up the same escalator. It totally was different, but it was the same one. And
yeah, we were lost, heavily lost.
Any good convention is like a maze.
That's the first one we've been to them. Have you been to them before? Like other?
Not tons, but yeah, a handful. I mean, obviously I've been to ExileCon a couple of times, but that's on a, you know, that's like a much smaller scale. But I've also I went to PAX East when I was living in Boston, or near Boston, I should say. Not technically in Boston, but same difference. And I went to, there was one in San Antonio when I was living in Texas. I don't remember if it was PAX or a different convention, but
video game related.
Yeah, some gaming convention. I was there. The very first work I ever did in video games was League of Legends related stuff, and I was there for that.
What kind of work?
Casting.
Okay.
Like doing play-by-play for collegiate level League of Legends.
That's cool. Was that before streaming?
Technically, yeah. I mean, it was on streams, but yeah, it wasn't on my channel. And that was before I, streamed as a job or anything. It's kind of what segued into streaming as a job, because it was not really going anywhere, and I got frustrated and just decided to start doing broadcasts myself, because I was working for a lot of amateur organizations, because that was like how I was trying to get my foot in the door, and I kept seeing them make a lot of the same mistakes over and over and over again with their broadcasts, and I was like, I can do this better. And so I just started streaming, and I made a lot of mistakes as well, but eventually it worked out.
Sweet.
And so, the broadcasting for a living, do you miss it?
Yes and no. I mean, streaming is fun. Streaming is this incredibly primal gratifying thing, because it's just constant little hits of dopamine every time somebody says something in chat, even if they're not saying something, obviously if they're saying something like, "Oh, your build is so cool," then that's a hit of dopamine. But even just interacting with people, sure, people in your chat there to watch you do a thing, like that is inherently, pretty gratifying. And there's definitely a part of my brain that misses that, probably because it wires your brain weird if you do it for 5 years straight.
Sure.
But what I don't miss is the the bits of drama here and there, though I was never really too embroiled in that, and the instability of income.
Sure.
Where, particularly with Path of Exile, where on a league launch month you'd make 4 or 5 times what you make on a end of league month.
Right. So you got to find a balance from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
Versus a steady paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever it is. Okay. New Zealand life versus US.
That's a big change going from the Boston area to New Zealand.
How long have you been there?
A little bit more than a year now.
Okay.
Maybe 14, 15 months or something like that. Though I guess subtract 1 for the month I spent traveling.
Right.
But honestly, I've been asked that question a good amount by family and friends and people in New Zealand and back home in the States. And the biggest surprise to me is that there's not one huge difference that I can point to. It didn't take too long to adjust, because it doesn't feel extremely different from the US in a lot of ways. I might get lambasted by some New Zealand listener that you have to your podcast or something who's going to be really offended by this statement, but it honestly, I don't really feel that out of place.
That's good.
Yeah. And, maybe a lot of that is the fact that I, came here and immediately started working at a place where I, fit in pretty well. I know Path of Exile pretty good. And, a lot of the people that I'm working with, I've even worked with incidentally in the past, I've been on podcasts with and stuff like that. So that probably contributes to not feeling too foreign. But yeah, there's a few things. New Zealand does not do pizza very well at all. I miss good pizza.
Really?
So it's not very well, or it's just that different that it's crazy?
The pizza, well, I mean, they don't do weird different pizzas. They still got the basics like pepperoni, cheese, all that. They just don't do it well. But I said one negative thing, got to say a positive thing.
Yeah.
The produce here is fucking fantastic. If I'm allowed to swear on this stream,
You say whatever you want.
Say whatever you want.
Like,
Why is it fresher or what?
Yeah, and also just like much less sad. A lot of the produce in American grocery stores, unless you go to the right places, is pretty sad, and like limp or flavorless. The carrots here, as an example, are the best I've ever had in my life. They're very good.
Really?
Wow.
Yes. I don't know. Maybe that's just this area. New Zealand it's not huge, but it's not tiny. There's probably a difference in that sort of thing if I go down to Wellington or whatever.
I love the idea of you going through like buying groceries and then buying a carrot and just being like, what is that?
They're huge too compared to the ones that in the US. They're like that big. They're massive.
I wouldn't have thought anything's bigger anywhere else than the US. I thought, pump it full of whatever, make it as big as it can.
I'm sure there's large carrots somewhere in the States.
Huh. Interesting. So are you like life-wise, are you enjoying it? Like, do you like that difference, that switch?
Yeah. I mean, New Zealand is pretty great. The only problem that I have with New Zealand is that it's 12 hours flight away from anything else, which is frustrating. Like I want to see my family back in the States more than once a year, but even that is pushing it. A trip that long every 6 months or something it's a lot of travel.
Is it longer than 12 hours to where you have family in the States, or is it 12?
It's a 12-hour flight and then a 4-hour flight.
Right.
Yeah, you'd go into LA and then
then across the other side of the US. So more like a 12 than a 5, something like that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it was something like 13 for us from the west side of Canada when we went to ExileCon. I feel like it was around 13 or 14 hours.
Yeah. It varies a bit, give or take an hour, but around
that
there.
is a long flight and not cheap.
Yeah, no, not particularly.
Have you done much traveling throughout New Zealand?
Not really, no, which is a bit of a shame. I'd like to get down to the Southern Islands at some point so I can see the glaciers there. And maybe in a few years' time, assuming I'm still here, which, I'm hoping to be, I'll try and make a trip to go see the Antarctic Ocean or just Antarctica. I'd like to at some point.
Cool. Is that like a viable trip? Is that like a thing that they do?
Yeah, there's tourist companies that will, you can do like a flyover. I believe there's the possibility of staying like at one of the stations, but that's very expensive. And then I think there's also trips you can do where you're on like one of those icebreaker ships.
Wow, that is cool. Are you an outdoorsy person? Like, is that your thing?
More so when I was younger. I say that and I'm not even 30 yet, but I mean, it is true. More so when I was like, very early 20s / late teens, but I'd like to be more.
It's so cold. I'd be angry.
Angry. It's not the emotion I expected.
Yep.
Are you finding the weather the same? Like from Boston area to you? I didn't even. Was my accent good? Was it right on? It was awesome, wasn't it?
It was right
Shout
on.
out, Justin. Nobody's talking to you. What was it?
It was right on. Absolutely perfect.
I could feel it.
He laughs.
I was channeling.
But it's fairly different. New Zealand. People in New Zealand like to think that they have seasons, but really what they have is spring, and it changes a bit. But it's mostly spring. Like they have regular spring and then cold spring, and then they have wet spring, and that's pretty much all you got here.
Okay.
What makes it spring? Just because it's a little bit warmer?
Yeah, because it's like not super hot, but it's not really cold either. New Zealand weather is like, I don't know. New Zealand is just kind of a little too perfect in some ways where it makes you suspicious.
Something's happening.
Yeah.
Well, you've had some pretty major things happen since you've been there, though. There was, you've gone through a hurricane or a monsoon, right? That was when you were there. And then there was some flash flooding in your town as well.
Yeah. So this last summer, there was more rain fall during like I think a week that normally happens for the entire year or
You're
something
at like
insane like that.
I guess, are you used to metric? I'm not trying to interrupt in the story, but are you metric or are you imperial?
I have found it pretty easy to get used to Celsius. That shift was not that hard. But getting used to measuring things in metric, like distance, it's specifically, my brain does not work so well.
I remember you saying that. Yeah, the whole like miles versus kilometers versus.
Oh yeah, that's right. We were
else.
talking about that in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
How many inches is 500 millimeters? Okay, so apparently you guys got 19 and a half inches in a weekend or a week of rain.
Yeah.
It was
really? So from the flooding we had in 2021, they had twice as much.
Holy cow.
Ours was in like a 2-day period. Theirs was in like a 5-day period. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But so obviously those are anomalies. You were okay through that?
Oh yeah. The place I'm staying is on a hillside, so didn't have any issues.
And the hillside's still there?
Yes.
Do you have a lawn?
Technically it's not huge, but yeah, there's a couple of orange trees out there, which is nice.
Orange trees? You fancy pants? Who gets orange trees?
They're not fancy around here. There's fruit trees everywhere.
Oh, that's cool.
Do you actually eat the oranges off of it?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't like throw a rock without hitting a fruit tree, particularly citrus around here.
Really?
Yeah. There's like
I do
orange
remember
and lemons in the backyard. There's on my walk into work, I pass by like at least a dozen citrus trees.
Are you close enough for work that you get to walk, or do you do transit, or what do you do?
It's I usually take the bus, but it's like a 25-30 minute walk. So if it's a really nice day, I'll walk in.
Dang.
What's the transit like there in comparison to like where you've lived?
A lot of people here complain about the public transport, and that's understandable because they're probably used to either an Australian city or maybe even a European city, depending on where they're from. But compared to a lot of places in the States, it's pretty good. Like I lived in Houston for a number of years, and it would take me 2 hours to get to work on the bus there, and it wasn't even that far. 2 hours on the bus and what was like maybe a 30 to 40 minute drive. Whereas here, the buses are, sometimes they might get canceled or whatever, but generally they're there. I don't know. It feels like it's not great, but it's not awful, and that is better than what I got used to in the States.
And really, if it is mostly spring, walking, it's kind of nice if it's only 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah. So long as it's not pouring out. The everywhere I've been, people say, "Oh, the weather here is so unpredictable. It's the most unpredictable in the world." Literally everywhere I've lived, people say that. But it's like, and it's not unpredictable in New Zealand, but the one thing you cannot predict is whether or not you'll get rained on. I've been out in clear blue sky and it's somehow raining on me. Sometimes I'll go to lunch and within the space of literally 2 minutes, it'll start raining and then stop. I'm not even exaggerating. Like literally 2 minutes.
Our clouds just flying by at like 60 miles an hour. It's maybe that's their normal speed, but that's funny. Just picture a cloud doing like a drive-by shoot. You know what I mean?
It's the one annoyance with New Zealand weather. You could get rained on at any moment.
Do you?
It's a surprise.
Puppy surprise. Do you have any? Did you pick up any pets when you first got there? You have anything keeping you company?
No pets at the moment. I'm just renting a room at the moment, and
awesome.
Planning on moving to a more permanent space now that I've got the longer term visa. So maybe a pet then, but not at the moment.
So longer term visa. So when you went there, was it like a 1-year visa, or how did that work when you first went there?
To begin with, yeah.
And then once you're there, you just apply for something longer term. How long term is a longer term visa?
My current one is a 3-year visa.
Nice. You just have to reapply for that each time. Is that just based on the work, or what is that based on?
So it's a work visa, yeah, through GGG. So one of the conditions is being employed at that company. But I could just keep reapplying for the same work visa, or I could pursue residency after I've been here for, I believe, 3 years, but don't quote me on that.
Well, that's cool.
Have you had any surprises from local wildlife that maybe you're not used to?
Not really. I don't know. Most of the local wildlife stays out of the way here. Most of the local wildlife is small birds. New Zealand actually didn't have I think any mammal life except for a specific breed of bats before human beings arrived and screwed that up.
Really?
Yeah, it was only bugs, birds. There's still no snakes in New Zealand.
They haven't figured out how to swim across from Australia.
They're really strict about that. Like, you get caught trying to bring a snake into the country, you get fined a ton of money.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's really cool, though.
Smart.
They're very protective of their ecosystem here. As you go through the airport, there's also huge signs up everywhere saying, like, have you been checked for stink bugs and stuff like that? Like, there's specific animals and species that they really don't want to let over the border because they would ruin the local ecology.
Oh, interesting.
That is really, really cool. You were mentioning it's obviously difficult to travel and see people in person, loved ones that you have from where you used to live. Is it easy to keep in contact, though? I mean, you have a big time difference now, despite the distance. Are you still finding it relatively easy to stay in contact?
Time difference can be rough, but I introduced much of my family to Discord, and so I talk with them on that a lot of the time now. Even my 60-something-year-old mother,
Nice.
she has a profile picture of the family cat now.
She's awesome.
She's upgrading her skills.
Yes.
Is Discord an easier thing than like a WhatsApp or something like that?
WhatsApp, I don't like WhatsApp because I installed it for that purpose, and then a couple weeks later I started getting spam messages on it, and I'm not entirely sure how my number got distributed and stuff. I just don't trust the app. And a lot like more traditional contact things like phone or SMS or whatever that would be costly in the end.
Right.
So yeah, Discord just ended up being the easiest option.
Does your mom use it on her phone, or is this a computer thing?
Yeah, she has the app on her phone.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fun. Okay, so we're kind of curious about that transition for you from going from streamer to now working at GGG. Did you find that? I mean, you mentioned that you knew people there, so maybe made it a little bit easier. But
yeah,
you had done 5 years. You said streaming
around there. I think like 4.5. Yeah.
So was that an easy transition to then just go into working at GGG?
I think it would be a little arrogant of me to say, yeah, it was an easy transition. I don't know. There was a lot to learn and a lot still to learn. I've only been here a little bit over a year now. So it's overwhelming, but in a good way, I guess. Overwhelming, but in like an exciting way, because it just always feels like there's another thing for me to start doing, another step for me to take. Go from learning the absolute bare bones fundamentals of how to even like do anything useful to then being given tasks, and I don't know how specific I could be, so I'm having to be rather
sure, of course. Yeah,
no,
don't worry, we're not trying to trick you into saying anything.
No, it's been quite the learning process. I just hope that I've been worth the investment on their end.
Is it when you started right into it, were you right into the QA stuff, or
yes. Yeah, so that's the role that I started in, doing primarily QA for PoE 1 when I began. And then a number of months ago, I moved on to the PoE 2 team, which isn't to say that I never do PoE 1 related stuff anymore. I will jump back and forth between working on both basically whenever it's needed, or, sometimes I'll be, because I still play the live game, so sometimes I'll be like playing and just find a bug or find something that seems, out of place, and then the next day I'll spend an hour or two on hunting that down, so it's not like I'm on PoE 2 team, I'm only allowed to do these 5 or 6 things for PoE 2 and that's it. Like the roles are a little more loosely defined than that.
Is it sort of the style of job where it's, at least it sounds like it, where your days aren't the same? Like you're kind of, Monday's not the same as Tuesday and Tuesday's not the same as Wednesday.
How do you mean not the same? As in like working?
Well, just like there's always just, it's something different. It's not like you're doing the same thing every single day.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's always new, particularly, for PoE 2 where it's very much under active development and stuff. Like there's always new stuff to do and new ideas being floated around and new things to talk about and pursue. Like QA is a good chunk finding bugs and trying to break the game and making programmers and designers sad. And then a good chunk, talking about balance feedback and giving opinions on decisions that that have either been made or are in the process of being made.
I don't know if you're allowed to answer these questions. I used to work in quality assurance as well. I used to work for Electronic Arts for, I always have to look at Justin or my wife for how long, but it was like 7-9 years, whatever it was. So I'm just curious about some of the, like, how, when you find a bug, how does it kind of get, I don't know if you're allowed to say this, and I'm not trying to get you to say anything you shouldn't, but
out with the question, Ty.
When you find a bug, how do you, what's the grading system like, and how's the approval process work for trying to find something, or sorry, for trying to fix something? So, you know, when I used to work, we'd have like letter grade bugs, right? And it would be like, oh, well, that's a C grade bug. That's just a visual glitch that's not going to impact gameplay. Where an A bug would be like a crash bug that has to get fixed. B would be relatively serious, but it's not going to break the game, but it still makes the game suck. You know,
I see what you mean.
Like that kind of grading system. Do you have? Is there anything like that?
I mean, not a 1-to-1. We have like a priority system as to what needs to be worked on first. But yeah, not like a letter grade system or anything. No.
Is it the quality assurance department or the person that finds the bug, or, you know, maybe the head of QA who determines the severity of the issue?
It's, I mean, the ultimate ruling on that would be down to the producers, I believe. Though, you know, oftentimes a judgment call, like if I find a bug where this is not a real example, but just like, say, for some reason casting absolution makes the game crash, you know, like this really straightforward, simple bug, simple crash where you can just do it with a button press. Like, you know, I can mark that as high priority pretty confidently. And, you know, sure. I don't think that's going to be an issue. But yeah, I don't know how specific I'm allowed to get. So
no, that's no problem.
How big is the QA team?
I don't know. A couple dozen people.
Okay.
Is that?
Do you guys all like work together with the QA stuff? Like do you all just test your own thing, or how does that work with regards to determining what you're going to be working on?
So there is a head of QA. And so, you know, anything that he asks you to work on or directs you to work on is obviously a priority. But aside from that, yeah, it is relatively self-directed. Like, you know, changes will be made and then they'll be in our tracker, and then you go and find things that have been completed, and then you assign yourself to that thing and start checking it.
That's cool.
And I work pretty closely with the skill design team for PoE 2. You probably met Rory at PAX.
Yep. And James, Rory, I think he was saying that too.
Yeah, James as well. So Rory Rackham is our lead skill designer, and then James is pretty much the other designer working on skills for PoE 2. We all sit right near each other, and those are primarily what I QA. So like, you know, trying to find ways to break any of the skills that you were playing at the demo, pretty much. That comprises probably about half my workload, maybe a little bit more. So that's, you know, it's most of what I do.
Trying to break the rest of it.
Yeah. Trying to break skills, and because there's a lot of skills and also a lot of supports and a lot of ways that they can interact and a lot of things that can break because of those ways that they can interact. So it's a lot to keep track of, and I'm sure there's some stuff that I've missed. And on top of that, it's, you know, that also extends to things that aren't necessarily a new skill or a new skill gem, you know, like fundamental stuff like dodge roll broke so many things. None of it made it to the demo. Well, I hope none of it made it to the demo because it was caught in time. But, you know, there were all sorts of things, and then all sorts of stuff where like, oh, what happens if you click a lever when you're a bear? Oh, the game just crashes. It doesn't like that. Okay, what happens when you try to climb down a ladder when you're a bear? Oh, the game just crashes. It doesn't like that. That sort of thing. So all those sorts of things is what the bulk of my day is taken up with. But then, you know, any other PoE 2 related thing, if I have free time and it needs to be checked, I'll go check it. And then I am taking on a few design tasks here or there.
Oh, cool.
When there's a relatively simple task and they want me to learn a thing.
Do you think, I imagine it probably does quite a bit, but like you obviously have quite an extensive history with PoE 1, just playing the game itself for large amounts of time, and then doing builds and all that kind of stuff. Does that help quite a bit, I imagine, with you trying to wreck things and find weird ways for things to...
Oh yeah. Because especially when I was working more on PoE 1, because a lot of that knowledge directly translates, but even then, like larger, broader concepts translate pretty well to PoE 2. And I don't know, it's often just a matter of like, oh god, how do I mean, you did QA for a little while, yeah. Tyler. So, well, I say a little while, probably longer than me. So you might get it as well, but like it's just a matter of like loading up whatever it is I'm testing and fiddling with it until some weird idea hits me. And it's like, ooh, I wonder what happens if I do that. Like that's why I love my job.
Yeah.
Because it's just me getting to play with toys and make them do strange things. It's fun.
No, I hear you. Well, see, here's the thing though. Like I have a lot of QA questions for you, and I'm not, again, trying to put you in an awkward place, but like when I was doing testing on like FIFA on the first like mobile Nokia phone that ever played games in the world. You know what I mean? And like,
okay.
And I was doing stuff like, NBA Street 2 on, ancient consoles that people now have in like, I don't know, they trade them in and don't get anything for them. That's all there. You know what I mean? Like it was basic. It was a lot of like racing and sports games and stuff like that. So there wasn't really an insane amount of combos that I could do. There wasn't a lot of creativity per se that there was required. It was you play the game, there's the bugs, they just show up. So like PoE, like you said, a billion different combinations that you can do with passive trees and skills and items. And how do you guys deal with some of these? I don't know, like there's the community can put like, hey, if you do this and this, it's not supposed to do this or this. Like if it doesn't break the game, how does QA go about deciding, well, that's actually as designed? Like it's a multi-step process. It's a complicated way to get there. How do you go from, yeah, that's actually an issue to that's as designed?
Well, I mean, it helps that we're in the same building as the people who designed it. So,
yeah, I guess so, right?
If a question like that comes up, it usually is just like relay it to the designer who is working on it, because they're ultimately the one who's going to be making the call as to whether there's some interaction that was intended or not. Yeah, it's not really down to QA there. If it's like functioning and something isn't obviously breaking, but there's multiple ways it could be interpreted, then you go to the designer since it was their idea, their brainchild.
You ever scroll through the bug list on the actual form and select a few and hope for the best, hope you can fix them quick? Or like find the 100% repro rate to get it fixed and send it up?
Yeah. I have a bookmark of a bunch of different forums, the bug report ones, the technical support ones, the some of the more general ones. I look through those at least once a day.
Cool.
And then also when you type /bug in game, it sends a report to us. So those get looked at too.
Right.
Wait,
that's cool. Yeah. /bug. I remember
what?
Once Rory saying and then joking and almost regretting it. That's like, if you type /bug, you can tell us anything you want. You can say anything. You can send us any, like, because that's how it works, right? You like hit /bug and then it's just, there's your message.
Yeah, if you type /bug and then a message after that, it sends a report.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Though it does have a character
Octavian
limit.
Is there?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is exactly. It's like a few hundred or something.
Sure.
And sometimes people will write quite a lot. And
you just see it end mid-word.
Yeah, it just ends in the middle. And then I don't know what the actual bug was.
That's right.
Like a couple days ago, we got one.
Swearing yet?
That does happen. But a couple days ago, we got one where like someone was like, I found a bug with the Forbidden Sanctum. I didn't want to report this bug in the forum because it was, it has potential for player advantage. The bug is, and then it just ended.
And then it just ends.
Didn't have enough space.
Does the user know that the character limit's up?
I don't believe so.
That's awesome. Oh, that sucks.
They wrote like a whole book and it doesn't go through.
Oh man.
So when you went in, this is just a for fun question. When you joined GGG and you were going in as QA, was there anything that as you're flying there that you were going, this is the one thing that I want them to fix?
The only one I can think of is pretty minor. So in Heist, there's the twins boss fight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like, I forget their names, but there's a cold twin and then I think the other one is fire themed, but there's a cold themed one. And he does this huge slam attack that encases you in ice, and it freezes you. But it's not a freeze. It's the same sort of debuff as the Elder Immobilization, actually.
Okay.
Okay.
But it covers you in ice, and it had a 2D visual on the debuff bar that was the same as freeze. So I thought that I was getting frozen by it, even though I was on a character that was freeze immune. So I got there, I reported that, and the end result was, I believe we changed the art so that it doesn't, it's not telling you that it's not showing you that it's freezing you when it's not actually freezing you.
Interesting.
That's awesome.
How difficult is it, having played Path of Exile for so long, and you said you still play it on your own time as well? How difficult is it to, now that you're part of QA, it's your job to test the crap out of new stuff, it's your job to test the crap out of old stuff that exists. How difficult is it to, sorry, I don't, what we were talking about, QA, we were talking about.
I heard how hard is it?
Always hard. If you know what I mean.
Keep that part in.
Okay, I got it. It's back. Thank you. No, it's turned back on. Somebody turned the switch back on. Okay, so how difficult is it to, like, you're used to a game, you're used to how it works. You might be used to certain bugs after playing for 5 years, and now it's your job to find them and test them. Is it difficult to go from being used to something that maybe it's been a bug for a long time, but now you're used to that being a part of the game? Is it a difficult thing to get over now that it's your job to find things no matter how long they've been there?
I'm sure there's going to be somebody in the comments saying there's this bug that's been around for 5 years and you should know about it, but I can't think of anything that would fit that description.
An example would be like the 0.1 patch just came out for the current league that we're in, and the company just added in the description that SRS is physical to fire conversion. Where
so like actually described it on the gem.
Right. Now, I mean, that's an example of something
that was an improvement.
Game improvement, not a bug fix. But no, like when I've been playing SRS for forever and ever and ever, that's something I get used to. It's something that I forget isn't there. It's something that, of course, would be important information, but I'm so used to playing it that information, the need for that information is gone. And if I was to get hired at GGG, maybe it wouldn't even cross my mind to bring that up, despite the fact that I've played SRS for 5 years. You know what I mean?
I can't think of any examples for the base game. I did see when we were at PAX and Gamescom quite a lot. So we had a lot more players there than we did at ExileCon who are like very new to obviously Path of Exile, but even like ARPGs in general, and taught us a lot of things about what needs to be tutorialized, and like what. So sort of in a similar vein to that, like what we just can't just like take for granted.
Oh, good. That's cool.
So stuff like a lot of people would accidentally hit Z and then not realize they had turned off loot and
the loot,
not turn it back on again, and then they wouldn't pick up anything for the rest of their play session.
I thought this was supposed to be a loot game.
Yep. And things like just not knowing where the skill menu was or how to open that since that had moved, all sorts of little things like that. So not a direct answer to your question because I couldn't really think of an example, but like, yes, it is very easy to have blind spots as a dev, and it's very important to get other people in front of your game so that you can find those blind spots.
So that's actually a pretty good segue into chatting about ExileCon and Gamescom or Con? Gamescom?
I think it was Com with an M.
Gamescom. And then PAX West. So when we were there, I don't remember who we were chatting with that mentioned this to us, but it sounded like there was a relatively, at least to me, high percentage of players that were standing in these crazy lines that had never played Path of Exile in any form. I think it was like 30%, but that still seemed really high to me.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I didn't do like an official survey or anything going around asking, but at least 30 does seem correct.
Yeah.
I mean, so there was a lot of people who were at those conventions who were just there because they loved gaming, or maybe had heard of Path of Exile, but were a little scared off by the complexity of the 40th expansion being put out or something like that for PoE, and so we're excited about a fresh slate with PoE 2, that sort of thing.
So is that like, is that a useful thing though for you guys as you're watching people play or getting feedback from them? Like you kind of mentioned there that you learned maybe some things maybe need to be tutorialized a little bit more than
absolutely
they have been.
And it's also just really nice because a lot of players who are relatively new to ARPGs or PoE or what have you had pretty good feedback. Like they were happy with the game. They enjoyed playing it, and that's that's a load off to a degree, because like obviously no shade meant to anyone who attended ExileCon. They are, ExileCon was fantastic and it was full of lovely people, but also it was mostly people who were big fans of Path of Exile.
Sure. Yeah, obviously.
If you're going to spend thousands of dollars and fly around the world to go to a Path of Exile themed convention, you probably like Path of Exile. It's a pretty safe bet. So, you're probably the kind of person who's also going to like Path of Exile too. So, like if we had gotten mostly negative reviews from people at ExileCon, that would have been a big red flag. But yeah, getting it in front of people who aren't such entrenched PoE veterans and still getting a good response and still getting generally positive feedback is great. That's really, really good.
Did you guys notice any sort of bug type stuff while people were playing it at the conventions? I was talking to, I want to say it was Rory.
It was so frustrating.
He was struggling. Yeah, Rory said he was struggling to watch some people play because he was like, don't do that.
It's like, tiny little things. Like I think the rare monster mod that makes frost bolts happen, that was causing bloom explosions. So that's minor and pretty easy to fix. We just didn't spot it before the demo was put together, and other things like tornado causing desync, which I actually just today got a reliable repro for.
Oh, good for you.
Oh, cool. It's cool that it came from a convention where you're like, the big goal is promoting PoE 2, but it also gives you guys a chance to really see with way more people getting their hands on it, and in a lot of cases probably doing stuff that maybe sometimes you wouldn't think of. Like a person that's brand new to PoE is going to do something way different than
exactly,
I would imagine, than you guys.
And one thing I've learned in QA is that there's always another bug. You can keep looking at something and you'll find another way in which it's broken. It's just a matter of how broken is it, and will fixing this be worth the time to value sort of ratio. But there's no such thing as a bug-free game. There's just such thing as a well-polished game.
Sure. Definitely. Especially in Path of Exile 2, it's just so big. There's so many things that interact with different things in different ways that bug-free is not real.
No. When you were referring to feedback, whether it's at Gamescom, PAX West, ExileCon, are some of these surveys, is it all just verbal feedback and you guys are taking mental notes until you get back, or where does this feedback come from, or how do you get it?
I did take notes of things on my phone and stuff in the notes app, but yeah, it was just us talking to players. I mean, it's part of why we actually physically went to these conventions, because we could have just had them staffed, I think, entirely by the temps. I think that was an option. I don't know. I wasn't the person setting it up, but I believe that was an option. But we wanted to actually have people from the PoE 2 dev team out there and interacting with people, both because we know that the community likes to actually interact with people from the dev team. And that's a good experience for players, but also because it gives us an opportunity to get direct feedback from the people that we're making this game for,
Go ahead, Ty.
I was just gonna, on the convention subject, it must have been quite interesting to go. So you had ExileCon, and then it was a month or 2 months later that you had Gamescom, and then a week after that was PAX West. Whatever that time frame is, within
somewhere
a 2 month period, you were at 3 different, basically Path of Exile style conventions, but all very different. You mentioned ExileCons for the Uber fan. Oh, I hate the Uber. Oh man, I said Uber.
It's staying in.
Damn it. So anyway, for the Uber fan, and then Gamescom's just absolutely massive. You're 1 out of a million booths there, but you're getting an insane amount of attention, lots of interviews, and then of course PAX West, different dynamic. It must have been really cool to see the difference of people there and the fans that were showing up and who's in the lineup, who's checking things out. There must have been quite difference with all of them. I imagine that was quite interesting to observe.
Yeah, I mean it's humbling to a degree to see how many people literally all over the world are interested, and I mean, even like passionate about Path of Exile. And it's really cool to be working on something.
Did it surprise you at all?
Sort of. Surprise might be the wrong word, but because I've worked in some sort of Path of Exile adjacent job for a while, so I'm pretty aware of the scope of it generally. But like, impressed, I guess. Very, very, very much impressed me. And it is humbling to be able to work on something that so many people care about, and a little stressful at times, but humbling mostly.
Stressful in what regards?
Well, like
just don't make them angry.
Like I said, I've done a number of smaller design jobs here or there, and so there are some things in the game that are in the game because I thought they'd be good to be there. Whether that be a number at a specific value or a thing in a specific place or whatever. And so, this is a game that thousands and thousands and thousands of people play. So obviously, if I want to make decisions that are good, because a lot of people are going to interact with the end result of that decision.
Is your name forever attached to that decision so that they come back later and they're like, hey, this one didn't go well? I
mean, we do have a log of all the changes made to the game, yes. Yeah. So yeah, technically, I suppose. I don't think anyone's going to go do that. But yeah, technically.
Was it pretty nerve-wracking being upstage at ExileCon with all the crazy fans? Everyone knows who you are, and you were hosting some of the panels. Was that pretty nerve-wracking?
Yeah, definitely. Probably one of the more stressful things I've done in my life, but like good stress, if that makes sense.
Sure.
The keynote. I watched back the video of it afterwards, and you can just see on my face it's just like complete laser focus as I walk onto the stage. No, not relaxed at all. Some of the later presentations I was a little bit more relaxed, but that keynote I just really didn't want to screw it up.
Well, I think when we were talking with you at PAX, we were laughing about the idea that it was legit that Mark was just throwing stuff at you. Oh, nothing really planned with the boss fight.
Oh yeah, with the boss fight.
Talk, that was the boss fight one, right? Yeah,
with the boss fight talk. Yeah, that was entirely unscripted. Yeah, that's
fun.
Now,
yeah, I died a lot more than I was hoping to, obviously, but people didn't seem to mind.
No, everybody wants it.
I actually enjoyed that we got to see you die. Yeah, I thought that was fun.
Those bosses are tough, man.
Yeah, I was impressed with the guy who came up and killed that one.
PoE players are very good at their
yeah, they're a different beast. It's true. So you did all this stuff in ExileCon 2. I'm just curious because you were at ExileCon the first one.
Yep.
I mean, you were doing. I think you guys did like maybe a Bay class there, and I don't think there was too much involvement on the actual ExileCon event. For ExileCon 1.
We had the Bay class episode at ExileCon, and I did a onstage interview, or on the streamer couch thing. I did an interview with Rory and Neon.
Yep. So going now from that to this version, where now you're obviously part of everything that's happening in the background, even more so than just, a GGG staff person who's there and interacting. You are a big part of it. Was that like a fun shift? Was that an enjoyable thing to be able to be much more a part of things and seeing it from the other side than what you had seen from the first ExileCon?
I'd say so. I really liked being a part of it. I would do it again. I had a good time.
Did you find that like a big difference though leading up to it? Because now you're a part in the back. You're not there to attend and just have fun. You're there now to sort of be part of running it.
I mean, there was a lot more practice leading up to it. That's one of the things actually that surprised me about the first ExileCon was how freeform they allowed me as a content creator to be for that. Like Bayclast was obviously unscripted because we talked, from what I remember, we talked mostly about, like the PoE 2 reveal and all that at the time, which none of us knew about beforehand. So like, obviously that whole thing was entirely unscripted. And then even my interview with like Rory and Mark, I didn't run my questions by them beforehand. They didn't ask me to or anything. They just trusted me. They're just like, here's what your interview is vaguely about, which I believe, if I recall correctly, it was about like skill design in PoE 2. Which now looking back on it feels like it was something of a job interview. Right. And yeah, just have at it, just here's your broad talking point rather. Just you have, what was it, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, go.
Was there a struggle with ExileCon 2 with you guys from, you know, a developer standpoint, where the idea was, okay, we're giving all this information now with PoE 2, a lot more is going to be out there, but you still have to be pretty careful about what you're speaking about, what you're talking about, some of the stuff that can't be talked about. Like, is that hard when there's, you know, like I feel, just for me, the idea was a lot of stuff was going to come out about PoE 2, and which it did, obviously. Mm-hmm. But there's also still a ton of stuff that is, you know, we got to wait. We got to wait till June to get more info.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough. You know, even right now on this podcast, sure. I have to be somewhat guarded in what I talk about and how I talk about it.
Sure. Yep.
And especially, kind of more so at ExileCon, because there were a lot of people who, you know, wanted to get that little bit more information. You know, things like the VIP dinner. You know, you don't want to drink too much because then you might say something. Yeah. That sort of thing.
Yeah. People buying you drinks.
Well, and also the ExileCon, the people there know so much about the game, so they, you know, they may find ways to ask questions that, you know, a person at PAX West who's just having fun trying out the game might not fully understand it. Is that tough though? Like with regard, like we talked to you at PAX West, we actually found stuff out at PAX West from, you know, our talks with Jonathan and some other people too that we had never heard before, which was fun to find out about. But is that a struggle for you as you're I mean, you said it is now, but like just in general, I guess, I don't know how often you're talking to people outside of grinding your games though about PoE 2.
Not super often. You know, I don't really do a lot of public stuff anymore. I stream now and again on my channel, but it's usually variety games. Yeah.
Do when you're doing your streaming, I think we talked to you a little bit about this when you were in PAX, but is that, you know, is there a struggle there too, like with regards to being careful about what you're talking about?
It's usually fine. You know, like mostly the only folks who tune into my stream are people that are like long time fans who are just happy to see me back live again for a little bit. And they're, you know, perfectly aware that I'm not really able to answer specific questions about PoE 2 and stuff. It's only happened like once or twice where someone comes in and asks something and I have to be like, yeah, sorry, can't tell you about that. Yeah. Like, I did have someone just ask, like, what's the next league mechanic? It's like, what do you expect me to answer to that? What do you think is going to happen here?
Right. And you have Chris Wilson on one of his more recent interviews saying, we don't know what 2 leagues away is going to be. We only know what the next league is going to be. And they're asking you for 3 leagues away content.
Can't answer that.
Yeah.
When you're playing PoE 1, do you ever, I'm just trying to think too, like, is there ever points where you're like thinking in your head, oh, this is going to be different, or this is going to be changing or something like that? Like, are you able to play PoE 1 in its current, I know you guys were all actually I think everybody was talking about their excitement to get back home and start playing Toda and, you know, get into it, but is there a struggle to play just the base? I mean, it is the base level of the game at its current, you know, league release.
Yeah, I don't know. Not so much for me. Like, I do notice problems a little more often now because, you know, I'll notice something like, oh, that animation isn't quite right. Or, you know.
Oh, really?
You know, tiny things that, like I said, you can always look closer and find another bug. You know, like
your kind of brain's getting tuned into that now too. So that you're looking more for that stuff.
Yeah. You know, like a shadow that isn't rendering from something, or like animation that plays slightly wrong, or, you know, bloom that's a little bit off or something. It's usually minor stuff like that. So you know, that can make it a little bit more annoying to play the game when that stuff is just bothering you. But I wouldn't say that, like, I still love Path of Exile. I haven't played it very much this league, but that's primarily because of the trip abroad. I do have a character now at level like 90 in hardcore trade. That I'm thinking of re-rolling because mines make my hand hurt.
Oh, really? What is that? What you play? You made a mine?
Yeah, pirate class mines. And yeah, my hand is starting to hurt a little bit. I'm not I don't have the strong gamer tendons that I once did, I guess. So
what are you thinking of re-rolling to?
29?
Yeah, I'm 29.
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm thinking of going SRS, actually. SRS Guardian.
Cool.
Or potentially doing some dual strike nonsense, because I want to see how far I can push that in hardcore. But
you always play hardcore?
Generally, yeah. I find it more interesting to play the game when I have to care about defenses or else I lose. And so I like, because whenever I play softcore, I find myself just making these like full glass cannon characters and then getting mad at myself when I die. And it's like, yeah, I could just not do that and impose a restriction on myself to say like I have to be X amount of tanky, but it's much easier when the game imposes that restriction on me instead.
Right. I would find it hard to go from like God mode, do whatever you want, to like, oh, I can die.
No, I'm not like advocating one direction or another. People can play whatever mode they like.
No, I mean, sorry, from your QA side, where you can like,
I see what you mean.
Whatever you
so
want.
Like, in QA where you have like cheats and stuff to, test the game with. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I can sort of compartmentalize it. I don't know why. To me, like the game when I'm testing is not really Path of Exile in the same way as the game when I'm actually playing.
Right.
They're fairly different experiences.
Is it difficult being in QA? Maybe motivation is the right word. Motivating yourself to like, oh yeah, that's a bug right now. It's pretty minor, but it's, oh no, never mind. I was going to say, but it's going away when PoE 2 comes. But in my head, PoE 2 is replacing PoE 1. So never mind.
Yeah, no, not question,
because it's PoE 1 is staying. Yeah. When you were playing Exile at ExileCon for everybody, was there anything we missed on the screen? Anything that maybe, I don't know. Did you notice anything?
Any bugs? You mean live at ExileCon?
No. I'm referencing a conversation that we had in Seattle where there was something that you were surprised that people hadn't talked about yet. That was displayed. Well, I mean,
people just
have if we have to get rid of this part of the podcast, that's fine.
He can't tell us. No, he can't tell us.
People just have to find it.
Can you tell us which?
I tried so hard to watch while you were typing, but I was like lost. Which and I'm not going to go back and freeze frame.
Which one was it? Do you remember? Was it the boss one or was it the
people are going to have to find it. I'm not giving hints.
That's awesome.
All right. The hunt is on.
So I am actually curious with regards to like as you guys get close to league launch for each league for PoE 1, does QA shift at all to put more focus into getting ready for that league launch, or if you're sort of focused on PoE 2, do you just continue down that road?
Like I said earlier, I will jump back and forth between both games, so I'll definitely like help out the PoE 1 QA team when it's getting closer to league launch for sure. Did a lot of testing of trial before heading off to Germany. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. Seems like a really open company. Like people seem to get along well. It seems like you can talk to anyone. I don't know if that's how it works. Are you allowed to just message anyone at any time? Is there sometimes a hierarchy to relax on or to maintain traffic a bit with suggestions or recommendations?
No, I mean, I can message pretty much anybody if I want to. I mean, if I just started spamming, I don't know, Chris or Mark or somebody with like a million messages, that would probably be annoying, and I probably shouldn't do that. But like, if there's something I need to talk to them about, I can ping them.
That's cool that it's that open. That was definitely not my experience with my company that I worked with, for sure. So that's really cool. What else do you play when you're chilling out? Like you say, you play sometimes PoE when you're back home. Do you ever need a break from PoE? I probably would, despite the fact that it's my favorite game. What do you play when you do need a break?
I've played a lot of Tarkov lately. Escape from Tarkov, that is. One of my favorite recent games that I picked up is called Raven's Watch. It's sort of like it's got similar combat to Hades, but it's a much shorter, like tighter game loop than Hades. So basically the premise is you like load into a map, and the map is randomly generated with a bunch of little missions and stuff all over it. So there's, things like treasure chests to find, and then there's, stuff like encounters where if you beat them all, then you get extra XP and all that. And the goal is the run has a 4-day night cycle, and the goal is to get as much loot and levels as you can within those 4 days. And then at the end of the 4-day night cycle, you fight a big boss. And then if you beat the boss, you won that run. And then you
carry that stuff over to the next round then? Or?
No, your character that you played does get some XP, so they level up and you unlock new things that you can get in future runs, but anything and all the specific stuff you got in that run goes away. So it's got like meta progression. So almost as like a rogue light in that regard. But it's got a lot of really neat little gimmicks. Like one of them is a lot of the characters and enemies, their skills function differently depending on whether it's day or nighttime. So the day-night cycle is more than just cosmetic, which is nice. And then all the characters that you play as are like these sort of grimdark realizations of fairy tale characters. So you can play as like Red Riding Hood, for instance, and then during the nighttime she becomes the wolf.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's interesting. I'm just gonna
quickly random find you found or what?
I just found it when I was browsing through games on Steam. It's by Pastech Studios, I think, which is the same people that made Curse of the Dead Gods, which is why I picked it up, because I really liked Curse of the Dead Gods.
What was this game called again?
Raven's Watch.
Raven's Watch.
The only issue with it right now is that it's a little bit content light. Like there's only, I think, 1 or 2 maps that you can play on. They are randomized each time, but in terms of like tile sets, there's 1 or 2 maps you can play on, and like there's 1 or 2 bosses and like 6 characters. So it's in early access, but like the fundamentals of the game are really good. They just need to add more stuff.
Of the 5 classes that we've seen so far for PoE 2, do you have a favorite?
Probably Huntress. Yeah, spear skills just gel really well together, in my opinion. The kit feels like it flows really, really well.
I feel like we only got to see it once. I think we only saw it one time. I think Crip maybe played it once at ExileCon. It felt like we saw a lot of warrior or barbarian or whatever it's called.
Warrior, yeah. Warrior's fun. I mean, it's probably either Huntress or Druid for me. But Huntress, I think, beats out Druid just a little bit because Whirling Slash is super fun. Whirling Slash is the one, it's a spear skill where you attack and it creates a little sandstorm around you. And then as you attack within that sandstorm, it grows up to a max. And then when you leave it, it explodes. And that explosion is just really, really satisfying.
What's the Huntress style of play? What would that be sort of comparable to in current PoE 1?
That's kind of hard.
Is there anything?
Like the philosophy of skill design and combat is at a fundamental level relatively different in PoE 2 than it is in 1. So it's, I mean, it's a large part of the reason why the games diverged. So it's a little hard to compare, but it is pretty highly mobile. And like it's a lot of, because she has both an engage and a disengage ability. And you know, engaging, getting sandstorm stacks or Whirling Slash stacks, and then disengaging out and like causing explosion and just weaving those things together is a lot of fun. I don't really think that there's something that's too comparable from PoE 1.
It's kind of crazy because you got these 5 different classes that we got to see, and then everybody playing them at the demo, and we're not even talking ascendancies yet. Like we're literally just base classes, no passives.
Well,
like it's pretty.
There were passives on the characters. We just didn't have the passive tree in a state that we wanted to show yet because it still wasn't quite done. But there were actually passive trees.
So there were any passive skills being assigned in the background when you would level?
So when you level up, it would automatically assign them, which, so it just wasn't quite polished enough that we wanted to show it off because we preferred to, give no impression rather than a bad one.
Sure. Yeah, especially because you knew if somebody hit P and could pull that up, there was going to be, screw my 45-minute demo, I'm just going to...
Somebody would probably have done that, yes.
Yeah. For sure. Oh, that's cool.
Dang, you have me thinking about PoE 2 and PoE 2 questions.
We're not going to ask them.
Nope. All right.
Do you like it?
And so long as you don't mind the occasional, like, sorry, can't answer that, or vague answer, then go ahead.
I don't mind. I just don't want to put you in an awkward position or anything like that. My question...
What are the ascendancies for the Huntress?
Yeah, I can't answer that. Sorry. It's not awkward for me. I just feel bad for your listeners.
Don't.
They're well aware. They've heard us.
I was going to ask about item weight because it seems like there's like 600 new items, and I don't know if obviously I don't know if you're allowed to talk about item weight, but it just seems like right now items and how they show through filters, custom filters, are all based on either their implicit or their stat value, like whichever one-handed sword has the fastest attack speed or fastest total base DPS, or based on whatever implicit's different. But because implicits are going to be so different and skill-based as well, it seems like there's just going to be so many. It's like every item, the naive idea I have in my head is that items, you're just going to want every item to show. Is item weight going to be similar to what we have now in terms of drops and value?
So
and
you may need to clarify for me what you mean by item weights, like drop weightings of things.
Well, the frequency of drops versus what people are going to want to identify and pick up.
It's kind of hard to say. Yeah, because that depends pretty heavily on like what is strong and, you know, where itemization ends up in terms of what we expect you to need at certain points in the story or for the end game for a character to be successful. Like, I don't know that I can, and this isn't me trying to dodge the question, but I just don't know that I can realistically answer that with the state of development that we're at. Like, it's to some degree an open question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That was.
I'm sure there are more
kind of
solid,
done though, right?
Well, I'm not 100% on all of them. I'm sure there. If you had Rishi on this podcast, I think he'd be better able to answer that question. But yeah, I'm not 100%.
Well, I'm trying to remember if I heard this correctly or not. Were supports only drop only in PoE 2? Support skill gems?
Yes, supports are drop only.
Interesting. So that's the ruthless mentality straight into just the main game. Then is that the idea? Like, well, I mean, I don't actually care why. I am a little bit curious, but does that make a build struggle a bit early on?
Well, supports are also not generally not a significant or even a source of damage for a build. Like,
I remember them saying that, right?
Yeah. Supports are more going to be focused on doing interesting functional things, or things that, you know, may change the direction you're going with a build rather than just being, I don't know, like melee.
Like a melee physical or whatever.
Yes, where it's just like, here's more damage if you're doing melee damage that is physical. So, like, yes, you're unlikely to have as many supports at a given point in, like, the early game of the story or whatever, but you also don't, like, need them as much.
Okay, well, that's cool then. Yeah, I guess I maybe just assumed it was similar to the supports of what we see right now, so that confused me a little bit to the idea that you lose this relatively large power spike.
No. And skill gems are also, like, balanced differently around that, or I should say the interplay of like skill gems and character damage and monster health and all that sort of thing. Like, it's balanced in a way where it's assuming that you're not going to have all this damage coming from support gems because there isn't a ton of damage coming from support gems anymore.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. That's really neat. I didn't mean to get this onto PoE 2. We wanted to talk about you, but so thank you for answering those. When PoE 2 is finally released, what are you hoping to do? Like, you'll be QA. Are you hoping to be? Well, I guess you said it was pretty fluid. Are you hoping to spend a lot of time with PoE 2? Are you hoping to kind of get the mix and match? What are you hoping to do once PoE 2 is released?
I mean, I feel like I'd likely stick with PoE 2 development primarily because, you know, I've been learning quite a bit of it, and it would be a shame to just learn all that stuff and then go, hey, sorry, bye. And, you know, I do eventually want to move towards more of a design role. So, you know, maybe...
What kind of design?
I'm not 100% certain. What I've been learning is quite a lot of skill design related stuff because that's what I work on for the most part as QA. So, you know, occasionally when there's a relatively easy design task to take on that I can do, it's usually something that, you know, is skill related. So
is it tough doing QA on a continuously evolving game? Like, you know, PoE 1 is not continuously evolving in the sense that the base game is where it is and it's just the league, but PoE 2, I don't know what state you guys are at, but I assume it's still evolving.
Yeah, it can be
as we get towards June. So
I mean, it's a lot of asking design intent, you know, going like, oh, this skill gem works a bit differently than it did 3 days ago. Is that a bug, or did we make that change on purpose? You know,
right.
Do we want this to work this way now? But usually it's just turn around in my chair and ask Rory. Like, it's not that hard.
That's pretty awesome. With controller support, is there like one person that's forced to play controller support, even though they might prefer keyboard and mouse, and it's like a punishment? They have like I'm now that's not a diss. Like I'm joking that it's a diss from like the PC race, but I only play controller support or console. So it's an enjoyment for me.
Every QA has a controller at their desk. So
victory.
Are they touched? Are they dirty? They look like
they probably
mine is fairly dusty because I don't do a lot of controller testing for PoE 2 as of just yet. But yeah, like it's something that's kept in mind, you know, like whenever there's a League mechanic that has a UI or whatever, you've got to make it function with controller input as well as mouse and keyboard. So that means that anyone who's testing that particular aspect of the League mechanic needs a controller so that they can test that functionality. That sort of thing.
What about mobile? Do you guys do, like, are you part of any of that stuff?
We have a dedicated mobile QA team.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Though I did do a little bit of help with mobile device testing just before ExileCon.
Just to make sure it worked when you guys
yeah, I mean, they got a bunch,
people.
You know, because ExileCon was a huge deal, so a bunch more hands on deck for that. But
yeah. The cleaning crew ever come in during the day and you have like somebody vacuuming around your desk for like 45 minutes straight and you don't realize it until they've been there for forever and they're like taking notes instead of vacuuming?
No, that has not specifically happened to me, but I'll keep an eye out for it.
Do you know if the cleaning crew is hiring?
No, I haven't checked. Sorry.
Okay, nope, no problem. If you just happen to run into me,
you may have to make your way to New Zealand. Good luck.
Yeah, me and my pet snakes. Doot, doot.
Oof.
They pulled over right at the airport. So what's the rest of this year look like for you? Are you going home at all at Christmas time? Or are you gonna be just staying out there?
In February, I'll be visiting home.
Oh, cool.
I'm turning 30, so going home for that. Celebrate.
Nice. Fat.
Thank you.
How long's that? Do you go for like a week?
2 weeks.
What do you do? Nice. That'll be sweet. And what do you do like holiday wise when you're sticking around in New Zealand? Like, have you had in a year? Would you have gotten much holiday time?
I was here for last Christmas. Yeah. Didn't really do much. Just kind of stayed here.
Did they get snow?
No. Well, on the southern island, yes, but not here in Auckland.
So, well, say, what are you doing outside of, you know, if you're not playing video games and you're not working, what are you doing?
Those are kind of the things I do. I don't know.
Yeah, you just took away. Yeah.
I try and get outside a little bit every now and again. I live right near a mountain range called the Waitakaris, and so I've gone up on those on the trails.
Like hiking?
Yeah.
Nice.
Gone hiking in those a couple of times, but yeah, it kind of covers it.
Do you guys do any sort of like team building stuff? You go out with like...
There's like a company dinner after every league launch, like a little party thing.
Oh, cool.
It's held at various venues.
Nice.
And I think there's been a few times where they've done like not so much like company outings, but like someone at the company does an outing and they have like just an open invitation for anyone at the company who wants to go. So like I think there was a fishing trip a number of months ago, and there's like
cool.
airsoft stuff coming up soon.
Oh, everybody could just start shooting each other. Sweet.
That's awesome.
Get out that anger.
Well, I'm very happy for you. It seems like you're having a fantastic time and enjoying your choice. So I'm happy for you. It seems like a fantastic place to work.
Yeah, I'm very happy here. New Zealand has been great, and GGG has been great.
Is there an excitement towards the idea of the PoE 2 coming out? Because then you're obviously much more free to just, you know, you don't have to be careful about what you talk about. Like from your guys' perspective, are you as excited for PoE 2 to eventually be released as everybody else?
I hope so. As in, I hope everyone is very excited for PoE 2 because we're pretty excited for PoE 2.
It seems like the community's pretty excited for it.
I can't wait. The spirit stuff is what I can't wait. I'm minions only. Like I'm basically zombies only, or zombies and something. And I can't wait to see what all that kind of stuff is as those reveals start coming through. It's going to be sweet.
Excellent.
Was any of that stuff in the demo, like the spirit reservation,
Spirit
that kind of stuff?
Just as a concept? Yeah, Spirit was in the demo.
And you could use some skills, like you could reserve.
Yeah. Most of the demo characters had some Spirit reservation effect, like the Huntress had a Herald, for instance, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Where's cool. I was trying to see it on the display when Justin and I were watching ExileCon live, and then going back over the videos after trying to find certain parts. Like I've probably seen them 100 times now. I couldn't see where Spirit was currently.
It's just over the mana bar.
So over the circle.
And
yeah, there's like a little meter that's sort of a golden yellow.
Just like a crescent over top.
like a rage
Yeah,
bar,
sort of like a
the
rage
style
bar,
of
yeah, but a bit thicker
okay.
and like embellished.
All right, I'll go back and find it.
Cool.
And I will look
That's
at
pretty fun.
every single one of your gameplay moments at ExileCon and find out this thing that must be discovered.
Okay.
It's probably nothing.
It's probably something.
Try
It's
not
going to be
actually
exciting.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna let you go. Thank you. Thanks, Oct, for taking some time and chatting with us and letting us nerd out a little bit about your role and your life and PoE 2 and all that good stuff. We appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for having me on.
That was really awesome. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, let's wrap this up. Forever Exiled, episode 207. I'm Justin, aka Tags,
I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
and our big special guest.
Hi, I'm Octavian.
Amazing.
Nailed it. Right on. Hey, you're gonna go play in your
Patrons will
lawn
catch
now,
you.
right? Now you can go like roll
It's
around in the
green.
grass with your
It's-
oranges and lemons. No, lime
It's
green.
like 7
lemons.
p.m.
Yeah.
It's dark out.
Is the grass green?
Yeah.
Okay. So well taken care of. It's not like a yellow lawn like we have here.
No, it's nice and lush and beautiful and
Lucky. All right. Patrons will catch you in After Dark. Everybody else will see you next week in episode 208, I think. Yeah. Good luck, Octavian. Thanks so much.